Hello, everyone, and welcome to FAIR's free monthly webinar series. My name is Terry Mokowski, National Programs Manager at FAIR, and your moderator for today's presentation, From First Sleepovers to College, Coaching Your Food-Allergic Child to Independence. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This presentation will be recorded and posted on the FAIR website in about 7 to 10 days. Please note that for maintaining a quality recording, all attendees will be muted throughout the webinar. However, you may submit questions throughout the broadcast by using both the questions and chat features in the GoToWebinar toolbar that you should see on the right-hand side of your screen. If time permits, we will respond to some moderated questions for our presenter at the end of the webinar. For those of you on Twitter, we encourage you to join us in conversation during the broadcast. You can follow along with our webinar live tweets at our handle @foodallergy or #FairWebinar. Next slide, please. Our key speaker today is Denise Bunning. Denise is an educator, support group leader, and advocate who actively works to improve the lives of children with or without food allergies. A former elementary school teacher, Denise earned a BA in early childhood education from In 1997, Denise co-founded MOCA, Mothers of Children Having Allergies, a support group for food allergic families. Denise serves on the committee tasked with authoring the guidelines for the management of life-threatening food allergies in Illinois schools. She recently co-authored The Food Allergy Experience with Dr. Ruchi Gupta. Denise serves on the Board of Directors for Food Allergy Research and Education. She is also on the Founders Board of Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago and the Women's Board of Northwestern Lake Forest Hospital. The Bunnings have 2 sons who are affected by food allergies. Brian, who is 23, has life-threatening allergies to tree nuts and also has asthma. Daniel, age 20, has life-threatening allergies to milk, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish, and also has eosinophilic esophagitis, a digestive order related to food allergies, which has required a gastric tube for much of Daniel's nourishment. At this time, I'm so delighted to turn the presentation over to Denise.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, everyone. As Carrie said, I'm Denise Bunning, and holy cow, there are a lot of you signing in, so I am thrilled that you're listening. I'm going to get right to it as I have 35 slides to share with you, so about 20-ish minutes or so with a Q&A at the end. But before I start, please know 3 things. 1, you can do it. 2, FAIR is here to help. 3, yes, you can always contact me personally for further follow-up. It's what I do. Here I am with my son Brian at the 2008 Teen Summit. He was 14. He's almost 23 now. He is still allergic to tree nuts, specifically cashew and pistachio. He outgrew his milk allergy at age 11 and his egg allergy at 17. I've always loved meeting other parents at FAIR events. There is nothing like the support of others going through the same situation. I think the experience for the teens is invaluable. So great job for listening in today. Food is everywhere. This is so obvious, but it's why the lives of food allergic families are challenging. Reminder that nothing is perfect and that each situation offers an experience and a learning opportunity. You get better with practice. My husband Dave's favorite dad line to the kids is practice, practice, practice. How I feel A to Z. Sure, we can all fake it till we make it, but please do take some time to own your feelings. Afraid, baffled, pure, cautious, depressed, exasperated, frantic, grateful, hopeful, inspired, jealous, knocked down. One of my favorites for Mocha, kill 'em with kindness. Lack of control, motherly, nightmare, overwhelmed, pissed off, prepared, queasy, ready, scared, tired, uncomfortable, vigilant, why, extraordinary, zombie, oh, yucky, zombie-like. As they say, when on a peanut and tree nut-free airplane. Okay, come on, someday maybe. And if I could probably hear some of you cracking up right now, but since you're muted, I can't. Please put on your own mask before helping your child. It is very important that parents take individual time to recharge too. How we did it. I'm a huge fan of acronyms, as you guys probably guessed, with MOCA, which stands for Mothers of Children Having Allergies. Have your act together. A stands for allergy. C stands for care. T stands for timetable. Make sure you have your iPod and iPhone. iPod stands for I, individual, P, plan, O, of, D, day. Minute by minute. Who, what, when, where, how. Copies of your iPod to your child and your teen, to the teachers, and to yourself. Hashtag prepare, hashtag plan, hashtag proceed. I actually kind of think the hashtags before these are kind of funny because I am not on Facebook or Twitter, but maybe in the future. Whatever auto-injector you have, whether it's an EpiPen, an AviQ, or a generic, have a training party. Educate yourself and your child or your teen. Train the caregivers other than the mom or the dad. When having extended play dates, having sleepovers at family and friends' houses, include safe fast food or junk food. Go on 5th grade outdoor ed, which is usually one night away. Practice explaining and ordering. And now that everyone seems to have phones, create your own family rules about communication with your food allergic and non-food allergic children. Hashtag prepare. Thank the universe for the internet. Do your homework ahead of time. Get and check ingredients before going to an eating location. Hashtag plan. These are restaurants that work for our family. Do not assume that they will work for yours. Every family and food allergic child is different. So you must do your own research and make the necessary phone calls to make sure that a restaurant is safe for your family. Hashtag proceed. Before leaving for college, McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, and Jimmy John's were our go-to places. Now we pick our hotels based on the closest Chipotle, and I am completely serious. Daniel is still allergic to milk, tree nuts, shellfish, fish, and has eosinophilic esophagitis and a gastric tube. So he can only orally eat about 15 foods. Hashtag prepare. The next several slides are examples of trips taken. I'm talking this time about the 7th grade class trip to Springfield, Illinois. We got the detailed schedule, there was a bus trip, it was one night away. I called the restaurants to get the manager's name and the menus and the ingredients. Hashtag plan. We selected menu items ahead of time. We walked through each day of our itinerary with the teen discussing what ifs. We packed safe snacks and extra money. Hashtag proceed. During and after each of Brian's trips, I would write notes to myself about how to improve because I knew Daniel would probably be taking the same trips at a later date. And here I am sharing them with you. The deal with Brian at the time was after every meal, would he at least text me the letter K, which he did. And of course, that entire weekend, because it was the first time of him being away for a long time, I was, basically sleeping with my phone and praying a lot. Hashtag prepare. This one is about the 8th grade class trip to Washington, D.C. We, as a family, had been to Teen Summit. We had gone on a family trip, and we had been to Kids Congress. This included a detailed schedule. There was a plane trip. It was 2 nights away. We packed safe snacks and extra money. Hashtag plan. I'm a huge believer in what I call sharing my crayons. Ask other food allergic parents how they did it, which is why you're probably listening to me right now, and then adapt as needed. Here is a sample of one of my emails. I'm a little bit of a type A control freak in terms of the kids with the allergies, but I'm sure you all are too. Hashtag proceed. I can't believe how young my boys are in this picture. You'll see other pictures coming up, but your kids grow faster than you think. Hashtag prepare. This was our family's first time at Disney World, actually including my husband and I. I was so excited to take a picture with Goofy. Literally, I was like chasing him down. You probably figured out that I'm somewhat of a jokester. Hashtag plan. If you're not going to be there, having spelled out each and every detail ahead of time calms everyone down. Brian went to Disney without me. Daniel went to Disney with me. Here's another example of my email. Hashtag proceed. Daniel's choir sang here. I was lucky enough to meet another mom who has two boys, one with diabetes and one with celiac disease. She's become one of my closest friends. So that was a bonus for me on the Disney trip. Hashtag learn to cook. As long as you can feed yourself safely, you can be independent. Start early. You can see Daniel with his little chef hat on in the middle here. Once again, thank you, Internet. Daniel recommends videos by Gordon Ramsay. Hashtag birthdays. Brian and Daniel and their friends loved the numbered cupcakes. You are never too old for a cupcake. Hashtag Halloween. My favorite holiday is Halloween. Those of you from the Chicagoland area that go to the Fair Walk know that I very much enjoy dressing up in costume. We love to decorate and be silly. The Teal Pumpkin Project has been a wonderful way to help educate and bring awareness. In fact, my yard decorations, which you could see up front here, were featured this year in our local community newspaper. Both Fair and the Teal Pumpkin Project were highlighted in that article. I go all out for Halloween. Hashtag travel. It can be done. With lots of preparation and planning, you can do it. Reminder that it's about the experiences and places. Last Thanksgiving, my kids voted to have ribs. We try to have family meals that we can all enjoy if possible. We make safe individual mini apple pies. Our focus is on the family and fun, not the food. Hashtag high school and college. Brian was a swimmer in high school and college. He really enjoyed the University of Chicago and majoring in biology. His freshman and sophomore years, he was able to live in a dorm with a microwave and refrigerator. His junior and senior years, he opted for a very gross but convenient to campus apartment. Despite his allergies, Brian was able to participate in a college sport, a fraternity, find a girlfriend, and, oh yeah, attend classes. Hashtag high school college. Daniel played soccer and sang in high school. He is currently a sophomore at Northwestern, majoring in musical theater and economics. As a freshman, he was able to live in a dorm with a micro fridge. He had a single. This year, he decided to follow in his brother's footsteps and lives in a gross apartment. There's a trend. He prefers to cook for himself. Despite Daniel's allergies, he is able to sing in an a cappella group, perform in musicals, participate in a fraternity, has not yet found a girlfriend, but I'm sure he's looking, and yes, go to classes too. Hashtag dating college. Everyone wants to know, but how will my food allergic child date? Let me tell you, if there's a will, there's a way. With permission from Brian and his girlfriend, Kara, I am sharing what I asked them and what they wanted me to tell you. Here's what I asked them. Number 1, Brian, did you tell Kara right away about your food allergies? Number 2, Kara, once Brian told you about his severe allergies, what did you do? Number 3, any hints or suggestions for this group? Reminder that parents are really nervous about their 13 to 21-year-olds. Here's what Kara said. I think I knew about the allergies casually from being on the swim team, because she was on the swim team as well. But I think he told me pretty early about the severity. I was pretty nervous about it at first, probably asked lots of questions. On our first couple of dates, I asked, was nervous. Oh, looks like it forwarded, sorry about that. On our first couple of dates, I asked, was nervous about whether or not the food I ordered was okay for him to eat and be around. I guess I get less nervous now, but was pretty terrified at the beginning. One time I ate trail mix right before seeing Brian and was frantically Googling research literature and brushing my teeth. A few months in, he taught me how to use an EpiPen in the leg, and now I only occasionally have to ask about what to avoid at a restaurant. Something I would say about the experience is that it changed the way I read situations even when Brian isn't around. I'm much more aware if there are lots of allergen-containing food items around and it's a large group of people or kids. Brian said, I think a good saying is that I'm a person with allergies and not an allergy person. It's not the first thing I talk about because that would be weird, and it's not the most important thing about me. I try to bring it up casually at first and then get more specific on a need-to-know basis. If food is involved on the date, the other person needs to know. In my situation, Kara knew already from the swim team, so she knew casually, and that made it a bit easier. I also kept track of what she was eating, which really isn't too hard if you're paying attention to them anyway. Okay, that's very cute. So I talked about it on the first date, but didn't go into specific detail on how severe it was until a little bit later. She understood it was severe, but the graphic detail wasn't needed. I showed her a picture of my reaction once, a ways into our relationship, and it definitely freaked her out. So it was definitely a good call to wait. Allergies in general is a go-to conversation starter if you run out of legitimate things to talk about, but should not be your first move. Daniel has eosinophilic esophagitis. He's had his G-tube for 10 years. It's just part of who he is. Hashtag prepare, hashtag plan. Imagine my surprise when Daniel casually mentioned to me that he wanted to go to China for 10 weeks this past summer. My first thought was, no way, are you flipping kidding me? But as the mom of Brian and Daniel, I've always told them, if there is something you really want to do, never let your food allergies stop you. So I began to follow my own rules of preparing, planning, and proceeding. Hashtag proceed China. It took a lot of time, but Daniel stayed safely in Beijing, China for 10 weeks. He had a micro fridge in his dorm, and we shipped his formula and medicine a month before he arrived. We even got to visit him. He turned 20 while he was there, and you see him on the Great Wall with him holding, I make him every year hold his fingers up for his birthday, and I took a picture, which he used to think was very silly when he's little, but now that he's older says, that's kind of a good idea, Mom. Hashtag real life. Brian now lives in California. He lives in a house with 4 other working friends. He's a research assistant in an allergy lab. His plan now is possibly to get a master's or PhD in bioinformatics, combining his love of science, math, and computers. Hashtag family, high school and college. The years of yes, I call them. You want your child to have as many safe opportunities as possible. So if they are asking and wanting to do something, then in my opinion, it's up to us as parents to help them make it happen. Almost everything can be adapted. You just have to be willing to find a way to make it safe. Does it mean bringing your own food? Does it mean making sure you have a micro or refrigerator? Does it mean you skip one part of something? Does it mean relying on your 504 for extra accommodations? Be creative and make memories. With family, it is possible. Hashtag support. This is this past year. I remember sitting at that first teen summit listening to the mom of a college freshman, and I thought to myself, are you kidding me? I'm having a hard time getting through 7th grade. How am I going to do that? Here's what I can tell you from my humble perspective as the mom of Brian, who's 23, and Daniel, who's 20. You will listen to your kids. They will push and ask you to help them do something if it's important to them. They will also tell you that they don't care about something. Sometimes the I don't care needs further investigation on your part. They may really want to do that something, but it seems way too overwhelming for them. Be involved. Get engaged. I'm preaching to the choir here because you guys are already listening. Hashtag share. Starting my MOCA group in 1997 was one of the greatest ways to meet some fascinating, smart, and creative people. I was honored in 2013 to co-author a book with Dr. Ruchi Gupta. I'm super excited to be on the board of directors of FAIR. Parents, it's time. Get ready to pass the baton. Hashtag goal. With education, experience, expertise, your child will gain independence. Take a deep breath. You can do it. I'm happy to be one of your go-to people. I'm in this 24/7 until there is no longer a need. And yes, you can contact me at denise@mocaallergies.org. And I thank you very much. And now I'm happy to answer some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise. That was a great presentation, and we actually had some questions come in. So interestingly, a lot of them were around college. One attendee was asking, so I know you were talking about Brian and Daniel, and Brian has graduated and Daniel's still in school, and you were saying how when Brian was in school, he was able to live in a dorm with like a microwave and refrigerator, and then in a gross apartment. But someone was asking, do you know what is going on with college cafeterias lately in your experience, or any site visits that you did with either of your kids? Do you know, are they becoming a bit more allergy friendly?
So that's an excellent question, and FAIR, I'm going to flip it back to FAIR on the fact that they are really doing an excellent job with helping colleges get up to speed. And what I mean by up to speed, obviously, is exactly to this person's question. Back, years ago when we were doing college visits, just like each state and each school district has a little bit of variance, colleges, elementary schools, junior highs, high schools, and colleges are the same. You're going to want to visit different colleges and really check out how they're, the cafeteria, how it's laid out. What are they doing? Are they labeled? Some are way better than others. Some are so ahead of the curve, and others really need a lot of help. So I think it's not so much if you go someplace and they aren't doing it, that they aren't willing. Maybe there hasn't been someone with a severe allergies or EOE gone to that college before, and you're going to need to step up to the plate and help them. Maybe, that's a situation or an opportunity for you. I know that in both of my kids, when we were going and looking at colleges, they certainly were looking at the college from the perspective of, is this the best college for me academically, or if it was a sport or a music involvement. And then, yes, were food allergy accommodations on our list as we checked it out? Yes, of course they were. And, it's silly for them to think that their mom wouldn't be really involved, because of course I was. So, so I hope that answers that person's question. But feel free to reach out to me directly if you have more questions on that.
Great, thank you. Another question related to college. Do you have any tips for getting a college student to carry their epinephrine? Like any tips that you use maybe for Brian and Daniel?
So I think that Brian early on was always more scientific and a little bit more serious than Daniel. Daniel would probably agree to that. Daniel's more happy-go-lucky. I think that the severity of the allergies, and if in fact your child has had an anaphylactic reaction. I mean, I know for my kids, it was, they really wouldn't have thought about not carrying it. I do think that having multiple, if it's possible, I mean, I know there's always a financial concern, but if you're able to have the whatever auto injector you're carrying and you're able to have more than just two, because obviously it's prescribed and you have two, but if you're able to put those in various locations, like for example, when the kids went to college, you know, I put together this, you know, medicine bag, and it was actually in a pencil case, and it was see-through, and I would label them, and I would say, keep this in your backpack, and then you just never have to worry about it. It's always in your school backpack, and then this one is for your dorm. That one's always in your dorm, and this one is, you know, always, you know, the travel one, if you decide you're going to go someplace and you have to take out the EpiPen or the AviQ and stick it in your pocket. So I think not getting upset about when they lose them. I hate to be sexist about it, but females seem to be better about keeping them and keeping them safely in their purses, and at least a lot of the boys I know, including my own, are always, oh, sorry, we lost that kind of thing. So not getting upset if they lose it, because that's something that they need to have, obviously. Great.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll jump away from college really quick. One of our listeners was saying that one of the struggles that she has is wanting to educate the friends of her 12-year-old daughter, who now she kind of eats out with and has lunch with, and, you know, is becoming a bit more responsible with. This person wanted to know the best way to educate her daughter's friends about her food allergy, and also how to use her epinephrine auto-injector, like how to recognize any of the signs and symptoms, perhaps if her daughter was unable to ask for it. She said, which is maybe a cute idea, she was thinking of having some of the friends over for pizza to do this, but that on the other hand, she didn't want to scare them away or make them feel responsible for her daughter. And she says she knows it's a balance, but maybe this is something you've encountered, or perhaps you have some suggestions for her.
So excellent. I think actually all of those ideas are fantastic ideas, and I would totally go for it. In my presentation, I talk about having a party, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I would talk to your daughter ahead of time and say, you know, we're going to be having a sleepover or a party or whatever, however kind of, you know, whatever the party, whatever. And then, and it doesn't have to be right away, like the kids walk in and then the second you're like, hi, here's an orange, here's a, you know, you don't have to accost them like that. But I do think that, and now with all the different videos that FAIR has about updating, your children's friends or your teens' friends, they're really your best allies, because if something is happening, they want to know. I mean, nobody wants to be, that's why it's called an emergency. You know, nobody wants to be in an emergency, but if you plan so that, God forbid, an emergency occurs, you're ready to go. You know what to do, you know how to use an AviQ, you know how to use an EpiPen, you've actually done it in the orange, you were at that party, you are ready to go. So I absolutely would do it, and I think that your child and your kids' friends, it actually really empowers them. I found that once I did it every year, Brian or Daniel's friends would say, hey, when are we going to stab the orange? When's that going to happen? So, I mean, once they knew that, you know, the crazy Mrs. Bunning was going to be doing that every year, it was part of the, hi guys, let's get trained again kind of thing. So if you make it, you know, I hate to say fun, I don't mean fun, but I mean fun in a serious but planned way, then you can really gain the acceptance of your children's friends.
That's such great advice. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward just a couple years in the timeline. We had an attendee ask a question about dating. She is asking what advice you would give to a parent of a 16-year-old girl that has multiple food allergies and is feeling quite embarrassed and reluctant to talk to boys about her allergies, especially before a kiss.
So going back to FAIR again, I think the best advice that both of my boys have always given me, you know, you guys all know because I'm an open book, I talk about everything, and you know that my parents or my kids say, okay, that's enough information, Mom, thank you very much. So I think in terms of this young woman, a 16 young girl, getting on FAIR's maybe teen site and talking to other kids, other teens, to see how they've done it. Maybe, like, check out how boys of food allergies, how they've handled it, and other girls. I know that there's, in my opinion, sharing, I call it sharing the crayons, but sharing your information with people in the same situation often gives you that that jumping board, like, oh, that totally would work for me, or, oh yeah, no, that's not going to work for me. You have to make it your own, but you also have to get comfortable. And then going back to when I say practice, 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 the first time you do anything, you're always like stepping over your feet, and you're awkward. And usually as you do it, then you get better.
Great advice, thank you. And like you were talking about before with your hashtag support, I mean, I'm sure that's so important, and there's a community out there, so that's great advice for her to reach out and use FAIR to do that. Okay, so if you don't mind me jumping around, we had a question come in about how were you able, you did talk about in your presentation, but any specific tips on managing travel to a tropical island?
So my big thing about travel, and my husband would say, did you tell them you have travel anxiety? So you can all say that, yes, I did mention that. So for me, having 2 kids with issues with food allergies, and then Daniel with his eosinophilic esophagitis, it's just not like just throw it in the bag and get going. I mean, a lot of us that are obviously listening, we just can't sporadically do that. You can't stop and go to a restaurant without planning ahead. You can't just, we're going to go on that flight, we're going to go to a tropical island. So everything requires planning ahead. So now, because of, and again, thank you, the internet, and thank you, FAIR, for posting things, and thank you for other organizations for making it easier about, like, which airline did you fly, and what hotel did you go to, and were you able to send your supplies and extra food ahead of time, and were you able to either rent a hotel room that had a separate microwave and refrigerator, or were you able to, all of those, were you able to ahead of time, will help immensely. And then you just have to see with your family, what you're able to do. If you look at all the restaurants that they offer, or, is there one restaurant that is able to accommodate you, or you're going to have to eat in your hotel room the whole time, but you don't really care because you're doing the fun things. Again, our family is never about the food. It's always about the activity.
Great. Thank you so much. That's great advice for traveling. So Denise, you have 2 boys, and one of our attendees was asking how your boys carry their epinephrine auto-injectors. She was just saying how girls typically have purses, which maybe makes it a bit easier for them. But if you wouldn't mind letting us know how your sons both carry theirs.
Sure. So right now, so my kids have had both the EpiPen and the AviQ. The AviQ tends to fit in pockets a lot better. So, front pockets, back pockets of pants, all of their pants always have pockets. So it's usually a front pocket or a back pocket in terms of an AviQ. With the EpiPens that are a little bigger and a little bit more awkward to carry, they have often, they will put them in the pockets in their front pockets, not their back pockets, because it stick out of their back pocket. Back when cargo pants were popular, that was like, woo! That was, they're not so popular anymore, so it's not as easy. I know, like I said, because both Brian and Daniel right now, Daniel is in college, so he always has a backpack with him, so he always has his medicine in his backpack because he always has his backpack with him. So that's an easy thing for him. And then Brian, who is now a professional, has a, not a backpack, but like I don't even know, a carrying bag, and he keeps his medicine with him in that. So they are at this point very good about carrying it, and I still can't help myself and check and say, oh, do you carry it every day? And they're like, yes, Mom. So
yeah, thank you. That definitely makes sense. And along the lines with that question, we just had somebody ask, just talking about self-carry. At which age did you introduce self-carry for the Epi and the inhaler?
So from a very young age, I mean, you guys know this, but I was a teacher before I was a mom, so I can't help but, talk to my kids and talk to everyone like a teacher. So I kind of just, I came out this way, as what my mom says. In terms of self-care for them, by the time Brian and Daniel were in the 4-year-old preschool class, I was having them practice with it, even though the teacher and I knew that they were at a 4-year-old wasn't going to be administering on their own, but I wanted to get them ready. I was like prepping them for, and when we go to the big school in kindergarten, and so by the time they were 4, both of them were knowing like, my EpiPen is in there. Obviously wasn't, didn't exist back then. So from a very young age, my kids were carrying.
Wonderful. Thank you. Here's another question that came through. How were you, or did you, I'm not sure if you did, but how did you address the possibility of alcohol-containing allergens? Perhaps like when your sons were away at college, I know sometimes we get questions here just even differently about the subject of drinking, and having a food allergy. Did this come up at all with your sons? And if so, how did you address it?
Absolutely came up. So it's one of those conversations that you need to be having. Just like any food, drinks and medicine. And again, I know this is on FAIR's list, but anything that you put in your mouth or on your body, you need to be checking the labels, and that's often hard. In terms of alcohol, my rule was, you absolutely don't want to take a risk, just like you wouldn't take a risk with the food. So you need to really think about the decision you're making. Now, what was nice was that since both boys both have food allergies and they're both very close, they could talk to each other about it. So I would kind of get secret information back and forth about what was happening. Is he being safe? Is he checking labels? Is he making sure that he's not doing what he's not supposed to be doing? Yes, Mom. So you do have to stay on top of it. And I think colleges, actually, I just got Daniel, who is at Northwestern, who's a sophomore, who's 20, they just put out a huge email to the parents of those at Northwestern saying that there was recently they call it Dillo Day, and it's a very popular Northwestern activity, and there's a lot of music and parties, and Northwestern did a really good job of outlining, parents, please talk to your kids about the opportunity, are they of age to be drinking or not drinking, if something unsafe comes about, these are the types of questions you can and should be asking, that type of thing. So I do think that, situations about dating and kissing and drinking and other activities, it's awkward, but good grief, you want to be having these conversations, even if you're stepping over your words or you're saying, let's go on the website and check something out. I mean, anything you can do, have an aunt or a cousin or a friend, bring it up with the person if you're too uncomfortable to do it. But the conversations have to be discussed.
That's so true, and being prepared is so important, and such great advice. Just talking again about maybe how to bring up the conversation if it's a little bit uncomfortable. We actually have somebody who says that she is 14 years old, and that unfortunately, I guess maybe some of her friends don't care how serious her allergies are. Do you have any tips on how that she could bring up food allergies with them without making them uncomfortable, and maybe really trying to help them understand it and get the severity of it?
Again, I think that this 14-year-old, great job listening in and being proactive. So, huge bonus points for you. In terms of suggestions on friends that aren't being so wonderful about it, that makes me a little concerned that those 14-year-olds aren't really being that empathetic in terms of, anyone that has any kind of special situation. You have glasses, you wear contacts, you wear hearing aids, you are in a wheelchair, you have learning disabilities, you could go on and on and on about the different types of things that come across what everyone in daily life needs to deal with. So I think that going on FAIR's website, trying to find out some suggestions from other people your own age. Are there some videos that are easily texted that they can watch that kind of opens up the conversation? Are there pictures of people having an allergic reaction that, you know, you hate to be mean about it, but it's a scary situation. I mean, even in talking about on my presentation, you know, Brian, it's actually the picture of him having a reaction isn't in this presentation, but I would be happy to share that with some people, you know, on a personal note. It's basically, he looks like, you know, no pun intended, he looks like a lobster. His face is completely bright red. His lips are puffy, and he's in full-blown anaphylaxis. So that's not funny. It's not something to joke about, and it's not something that people should take lightly, which is why we're all doing what we're doing, to try to make life, the quality of, you know, life, health, and hope. That's the mission of FAIR, and that's what we're trying to do.
Definitely, thank you. And I'll just say a quick aside, if there are any other teens listening on the call today, we do have a FAIR Teen Food Allergy Support Group on Facebook, and you know, feel free to join that. We'd love to have you, and it's a great place to get support and get information and advice from your peers. But thank you, Denise, and thanks so much for answering all these questions. We still have some more, if that's okay.
Yeah, bring them on.
Awesome. Okay, so one attendee was saying that her daughter is having her first camping trip with her first 6th grade class coming up soon. Do you have any tips on how to prepare and manage that? Like, did you ever take your boys camping?
So I don't know if she's going camping without the mom or if the mom is going camping with her. So I'll just use without. Okay, so outdoor ed, that's what we call it here. Both my boys did outdoor ed, and for Brian it was a little bit easier. There was less food and stuff to pack. For Daniel, because of his eosinophilic esophagitis and his formula and all the different things that he needed, you know, we had like a rolling cooler, which, you know, of course, at the time, my son was like, oh my God, Mom, seriously, what are you doing? And I was like, well, you have to be able to eat, and this is how we have to do it. If you want to do this, this is, you know, the nurse and the camp director, I worked with them, and this was their solution, and that's what we did. So I think it depends on the severity and what you need to do, but again, I'm of the belief that anything is possible if you're willing to work through it and you have people that are willing to step-by-step go through your accommodations with you.
Love that answer. Thank you. So this is a huge can of worms, but any specific tips, I guess, for restaurants and eating out? Like, I know it's such an issue.
Yeah.
But any that maybe are your top tips or off the top of your head you could think about?
Sure. So again, you know, planning ahead is key. I think that figuring out, you know, you can't. I would love it to be a spontaneous type of situation. I would love it for every restaurant that had been trained by FAIR to have a cute little FAIR, trained by FAIR sticker on the front, and so that would make all of our lives easier. But until that happens, we're going to have to do a lot of work, and it means, you know, figuring out what restaurant you want to go to ahead of time, going online and getting the menu and figuring that out ahead of time, calling the manager and saying, hey, we're going to be coming at such and such a time. Try not to pick a time that's like a normal time for people to eat. If you come either before or after the rush, you have a better chance of getting better service, and people aren't going to be so flustered. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Daniel's mom, and we're going to be coming in on Friday, and yes, he really only wants, you know, rice and edamame on the plate. No, nothing else, just rice and edamame. Is that okay? You know, kind of thing. So I think, you know, people, I shouldn't say most people, lots of people really want to help, and I'm being very optimistic in that as this becomes more and more, quote, normal, that everybody is talking about it, and it's, oh, that's no big deal, you just have to do this to accommodate that person, that it'll become easier and easier.
Wonderful, thank you. Heading back a little bit to sleepovers, have you ever had a parent that was willing to host your child for a sleepover, but then maybe after you discussed the food allergy needs, it became clear that they can't manage food allergies appropriately. If this has come up, or maybe if not, do you have any suggestions?
Yes and yes. With my kids, again, we've been lucky enough to be in a community that we have lived in for quite a while, since Brian was 5 years old and Daniel was 3. So, you know, everybody, oh, there's Brian and Daniel. Oh, now Daniel's getting a tube. So it's not secret in our community that, you know, yes, are you that mocha lady? Yep, that's me. And those are my kids, with the ones with the food allergies. So I think having, I was hosting a lot. I was, you know, the more the merrier, and that's kind of my MO anyway. So having people come to our house and having the sleepover here first, and then I did a lot of like, when the kids were little, mom coffees. I hate to be sexist about that, so if there are any dads listening, I'm sorry, but at the time there were no dads that were at home having coffees, or, you know, even if you're working or getting together, it just didn't happen. It was a lot of moms, or actually caregivers. So I would have people over, and then I would train and talk to them about what we do at our house. And then as I got to be closer with some of the moms of the friends of my sons, then it became pretty clear on who was like, yeah, I'm never having them over to my house. That's just too much. I can't deal with it. But I'm happy to have my son or daughter come to your house, which I appreciated them being so honest about. And then there were a couple people that said, you know, I'd really like to have them over. Can you tell me what is it exactly that I need to do? Can you help me, because I'd really like them to come over? So those people will show up. And the people that are kind of like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me, just, you need to honor where they are. They might eventually get there, or they may be the type of friend that supports you, but they just can't have your child over for a sleepover, which is okay too.
Yeah, definitely. That's so true. Okay, so I think we have about like 3 more questions. One of them is related to traveling, which you may have touched on in your presentation, but how do you, or I mean, I'm sure there were when your son went to China, how did you or would you manage language barriers while traveling?
So there are lots of different websites that you can have things, you type in, I'm forgetting the name of the company right now, I'd have to look it up, but I'm sure that FAIR has a link to them, where you can say, you know, I'm allergic to blank, 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 and then it's translated into however many languages, or what language that you need. So having all your paperwork in terms of, you know, your doctor's note and your allergies and your medications, and having it in English and having it in, you know, whatever language you need it, Spanish, Chinese, French, whatever. And then making sure, again, lots of pre-planning. You know, can you send food, formula, medicine, whatever you need ahead of time, so that you know when you get there, you're in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, I know that the medication has gotten there. I know that there's this. I know there's that. So that you're less stressed when you're traveling. I mean, that's like an oxymoron, because all of us are probably, you know, pretty stressed when we're traveling. But most of the time, if it goes well, it's like a huge win, and everybody's high-fiving each other. So I would, you know, lots of pre-planning, but it's worth it.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll just let everybody know, on FAIR's website, we do have chef cards that you can download, and that's at foodallergy.org /chef card. And those are really handy and helpful for traveling and translating languages and your allergens. Okay, so last 2 questions. We're hopping back to college. You talked a little bit about this, Denise, when you were talking about picking schools with your sons, but one of the attendees today asked, did you base your son's college picks on how they deal with food allergies, or did you ultimately pick the college first and then deal with the food allergy questions after?
That's an excellent question. So I'll do case by case. So Brian, who really wanted to be a college swimmer, was very much picking his school based on math and science. I mean, academics was first, and then second was, do they have a swim team, and would I be able to, you know, have my math and science and be on a swim team. So that's how University of Chicago came up, and I had never, even though we live in the Chicagoland area, I had never been on University of Chicago's campus. And so the first time I was on the campus was when Brian was checking it out. So that's my first time checking out their cafeteria. And of course, you're taking notes on what, who's going to be in charge and that kind of thing. So that's how that came up. With Daniel, oh my gosh, what state didn't we go and look at a school? Daniel was all over the place. His first thing that he said was he was absolutely under no circumstance staying in Illinois, which is very funny because where did he end up? In Northwestern. But he needed to travel and see schools all over the place to come to terms with not only where he wanted to go to school academically, because he's left brain, right brain, economics, and musical theater, and food allergies, and his eosinophilic esophagitis. So it all came for him, it all came to play. Like some of the schools we went to visit, he was like, there's no Chipotle around. That's just not going to work for me. And I'm completely serious when I say this. Or, they have a great economics program, but not a musical theater program. Or, oh my gosh, we went to this school, but we flew there and then it took like 3 hours in a car to get there. Like that's not going to work for me. So every single person has, their kind of like their wish list of like, yes, does it hit your academics? Check, check. Are you an athlete or a musician? Check, check. Is this something that it's easy for me to get to from home, or I can easily fly there, or a direct flight? So I think you have to base your kid and what your kid wants, and your kid will tell you. They'll be very direct. It may take them a while to get to the answer. When Daniel finally, after the 10th person, around the country said, have you checked out Northwestern? And of course I had to like cover my mouth because I was like, I don't know. He doesn't want to go to school in Illinois. And we got to campus and he went on the campus and checked it out. And he was like, this is amazing. I want to go here. I mean, after we had done however many visits, but every kid, if they have that opportunity, should be able to make that decision on their own, because they're the ones, they're going to college, not you. My kids like to remind me, like, Mom, I'm going to college, not you. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I've already been to college. Thank you very much. So you can help them get there. It's just a maturation thing.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was such a good answer, and that's definitely a question we hear often at FAIR. So lastly, our last question, another one about college. Did any of the staff or friends at either of your son's school learn how and when to use the epinephrine auto-injector?
Absolutely, yeah. So both kids had 504s, and I did share that information with their colleges. And we were very open. We've always been we're definitely of the belief that, I'm not trying to be secret about it. I want you to know that my kid has a food allergy. I want you to know that he carries an EpiPen or an AviQ. If you see him having problems, I want you to know that. So we talked to staff about it. We talked to, depending upon each college has a different way of handling it. You find out if you go through the Office of Disabilities, you go through the housing office, you have to figure that out step by step through which college, and then making sure that if you're in a dorm that the RA knows, and if there's a roommate, do you train the roommate? Does your son or daughter train the roommate? So there's lots of different steps. But again, coming up with all of the pre-planning ahead of time, you can get there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know the college questions have come up a lot, and Denise had, done such a great job of shouting out to FAIR throughout her answers. And just for anyone listening, or for anyone that's thinking about college, FAIR really does have a great college program, and we actually just launched FAIR Food Allergy College Search, which will provide a more in-depth look and in-depth information about the different accommodations at specific colleges. Right now, we are working to add more colleges. So actually, if you're interested in a school and you don't happen to see them in our college search tool, please share it with them. Please share it with the dining services department at the school and help spread the word. You can access this search and other free resources about college at foodallergy.org/college. So just a little shout out to all of the resources we have about college, but it's so great to hear your perspective as a parent of two sons, one who's graduated and one who's still in school, and, how you planned and prepared and did it all. So with that, I will just give you a huge thank you, Denise. Thank you for taking the time to share your perspective and your experience and giving such great advice to our attendees here today. We're really so grateful for your time and your attitude and your belief that really anything is possible. I'd also like to thank everyone that was able to join us today and just remind you that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted online in about 7 to 10 days. And so with that, I'll just let you end it, Denise, but thank you so much for your time.
It's absolutely been my pleasure. If I can be of any assistance to any of you, just reach out. It's what I do. Stay safe, everybody.